Linda Rising is President and CEO of Linda Rising LLC. She mentioned earlier on that it's midnight in the United States. I promise it's a cycle, and midnight will soon end in the United States.
I always begin all of my presentations by saying, I'm incredibly old, you can tell that. And so the first question people ask is, how old are you? So I'm 76. And what I pray for is to see in the next election that Donald Trump is voted out of the White House. So it was the election in November of 2016 that was actually the beginning of this talk. That I live in what's called a red state, full of conservative people who supported Donald Trump. They are my friends, they're my neighbors. And what I noticed after the election was I started to see those people differently. I began to look at them wondering, is this person a Trump supporter? And I finally realized I had to stop doing that. I had to stop wondering about all those people that were formerly my good friends and neighbors. I had to stop wondering about whether they stood on the other side of the political divide and how that had changed our relationship. How many of you are watchers of The Twilight Zone? So this is on YouTube. I began to feel that I was a character in this Twilight Zone episode. It's about neighbors turning against neighbors until one of them finally grabs a gun. This is the United States after all. One of them grabs a gun and shoots and kills one of the others. How easy it is to go from disagreement over trivial things to feeling so strongly about a political stance or an idea about a programming language or an environment to deciding that these other people, those others, are not worth living. And that it's okay to say bad things about them and to them. I know families who won't speak to each other. They have disowned sons and daughters over this political adventure we are on. I know neighbors who have moved from neighborhoods. People have packed up, moved to a different part of the country, or maybe out of the country over strong political feelings. And so one morning I realized I had to find a better way, that this is no way to live. Continually feeling this animosity, this hatred of people who, until an election took place, were perfectly acceptable friends and neighbors. I had to think of a better way. So I'm not going to talk about Donald Trump. There's nothing I can do about Donald Trump. I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about me. I want to talk about the way we get along with our friends and our families and our colleagues, not about the people who are in the White House. Because what I've learned in this journey since the election is there's scientific evidence that will help us do a better job both of talking to, listening to, understanding the stance, the beliefs of people who disagree with us. This is what we do now. We've got a sword, and we will fight. And when we have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with us, it's not about learning anything or paying any attention to anybody else. It's about winning. It's about making points and showing how smart we are So that in the end, what we hope in this conflict is to ultimately kill the other person. Metaphorically, of course. But just to show them that we are so smart that we can argue any position. We can show how their rationale is incorrect. And when we have those engaging conversations, we're not really listening to what the other person is saying. We hear a key word or the beginning of an idea, and then we're beginning to argue back. We're already pulling out the arguments against what we think they're saying before we really understand what they're saying. No listening is going on. Only parry and thrust, ultimately with the goal of killing. How many of you have had a conversation like that? That was like a duel, wasn't it? Of course, we all have. And have you won that? Did you win that conflict? And now you see your opponent on the ground, bleeding from a mortal wound. And did he or she look up to you and say, "Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for showing me how wrong I was. Thank you for making me feel stupid. Thank you. Thank you for totally destroying my way of thinking about this issue. Thank you." Did that ever happen? Has that ever happened? It's never happened for me. I just wondered, all of you raised your hands before. Has that ever happened, that somebody appreciated being shown in an argument that was really a duel, being shown how wrong they were? Did they appreciate that? And were they moved or influenced? Were they convinced by this approach? Anybody? But this is what we fall back on. We want a way to argue. We want a way to show them. We want reasons to give them. We want to argue our side of any issue to show them that we know, we see the truth. I think it's hardwired. It's leftover from the time we were hanging out in the savannah when attacked by an alien force of any kind. Well, of course, defense. Get out your sword. Get out that weapon. Defend yourself. Show that you're better, bigger, stronger. That's what this is all about, isn't it? And we think, because we're logical, that it's all about reason. It's the data, the facts. If we can just show there's evidence, scientific evidence, even better, that there's data that backs up our position. Studies show that 99% of people believe that data is the way forward. Well, yeah. And of course, those people who are listening to us, if they were really smart, if they were really logical people, well, then clearly they would see that our argument is true based on data. And if they don't, then the problem clearly must be with them. They must be stupid. And that's where we are today. We're backing up our point of view with data, believing that if the other side doesn't agree with us, well, then surely they must be stupid. Clearly, they don't understand the data that shows that our side has an edge on the truth. It must be something wrong with them after all. Those people Those people just don't understand. They don't get it. It's unfortunate, according to the evolutionary biologists, that we just are not evolved to be convinced by data. Our reason, we think, must be something like a judge that weighs evidence, that looks for the best argument, that makes decisions based upon the best information that we can find, when really our judgment is more like a press secretary that justifies our point of view. We will selectively look for facts that back us up, and we will ignore any facts or any data that don't support that. We're very good at our press secretary. And, well, Dave mentioned Daniel Kahneman today. How many of you have read Thinking Fast and Slow? Yeah. He was the one who brought it to our attention using scientific evidence, lots of experiments in that book, that we're not rational decision makers. Reason and logic have nothing to do with how we decide to do anything, whether it's to marry someone or vote for a particular political candidate or choose a particular programming language or live in a particular country or work for a particular company. Those were not made rationally. That's our system one that made all those decisions for us. And then system two will give us a set of reasons that we can use to explain to others. If you haven't read Thinking Fast and Slow, it's a bit of an effort. It's pretty big, and it takes a considerable amount of time. Anything by Dan Ariely will give you the same information. It's called Behavioral Economics. And in it are outlined some serious flaws in our thinking. And absolutely the worst, the most serious bias that we have is called the confirmation bias. And it says, in essence, that once we have a belief about anything, then even when we look at data, even when we look at evidence, even when we examine science and what it has to tell us, we will selectively edit. And we will only be moved by the information that backs up the opinion or the belief that we already have. Do I mention this? Yes. My favorite experiment has to do with two groups of people who have violent disagreement on a particular issue. It could be anything contentious. There are so many topics these days. Both groups are given the same paper. It's a scientific paper. It's a paper with data. It's a paper with experiments and studies and information about the contentious issue. And the amazing result has been repeated many times, which shows that now both groups of people, after having read the paper, say, this paper supports my point of view. If they disagree, and if they read the same paper, how is that possible? How could they both read the same information and interpret it so differently? That's confirmation bias. And this is a problem we all have. Think about a time when you saw information that questioned the point of view that you had about anything. Did you take it to heart and immediately say, oh, look at this evidence. I must be wrong. My belief about whatever the topic was, I should re-examine that. Is that what you did? Or instead, did you look at the study carefully? Did you say, oh, well, the sample size was obviously too small? Oh, look, it was done at MIT. They don't know anything. Oh, well, I know the researcher who wrote this paper. I don't trust anything that he or she writes. You'll find a way. You'll find a way to discredit the source of that information. Anything that calls into question something that you deeply believe. Now, of course, we're not talking about brands of toothpaste. If somebody points out a flaw in the kind of toothpaste you're using and says, oh, well, try this one, it's better, faster, cheaper, you might be willing to move from your old position of toothpaste use. But if we talk about anything that's a deeply held belief, political belief, religious belief, something about things that are important to you, it's almost impossible for us to be rational, for us to look at reasons, for us to listen to argument of any sort, no matter how valid. The evidence will not move us because of this severe bias. And in fact, in experiments, there's evidence that if you do forget this, and you pick up your sword and you begin to argue with people using data, using information, using facts, believing that you're going to convince, what you'll do is move your opponent even further in the direction of holding that contrary belief. It's called the backfire effect. You're causing your opponent to exercise that confirmation bias to an extreme. And that takes so much energy and so much effort that he or she walks away from the discussion feeling even more convinced that he or she was right. So your nice, rational argument has not only not convinced them, it's moved them even more firmly to oppose you. So put down your sword. Just put it away. We know that it's very hard for us to hold two contradictory ideas at the same time, even for the sake of an experiment. That's why I wonder when we talk about experiments these days in the Agile community, and we say, oh, we'll just try it. I wonder, because usually at the beginning of that experiment, we've got an idea about how we want that to go. And it's very hard for us to accept that perhaps the result of that experiment might not be what we hoped. And we can't just easily move from one side to another. And what you'll find is that your confirmation bias will kick in, and you will somehow get that expected result. And if you don't, you will explain it away. I have seen that happen in organizations. Oh, yes, we did the experiment. Well, it didn't turn out exactly, but I know why. I can explain that. I wonder, is that real science? That's what Dave kept saying. Is that real science? It's too difficult. We can't go one way and the other way. We have a belief in place before we start. This is required of scientists, and they can't do it. So difficult for our brains. Dave Snowden gave us a talk this morning, and somebody called him a cynic. I would say no. I would say he's a skeptic. Well, wait, this is Greece. You know the difference. Skeptics are valuable. They have good hearts. They want to help. They want to make things better. They want to question. This is the country that began that. They want to question. And they want to examine things from all points of view. You should have skeptics. Every team should have one. Every meeting should have one. In fact, the question you should ask yourself at the end of every meeting is, if everybody seemed to agree, you didn't really do a good job of examining that topic. Somebody must ask the hard questions, because everyone at the table at every meeting you have is biased. And if their biases all match up, your decisions are not going to be as good. You all believe. When you all have the same beliefs, you don't do as good a job at reaching decisions because you've all believed that some approach, why are you here? Because you believe in Agile. That's it. Yeah. Do you not? That's a bias. So I'll be the skeptic. Where's your proof? Where's the scientific evidence? Where's the double-blind, controlled, placebo-controlled? I have another talk called, Is Agile a Placebo? I don't get much request for that talk, but... So realize that it's a bias that you have. It colors all your decisions. I've heard some people say some things today that made me realize how powerful that bias is. It was that we are all going to try this approach or this experiment or this strategy or this new technique, and people who won't go along with it, that's a bad thing. That, I think, is dangerous. I'm just saying. So I wrote a book with my good friend Mary Lynn Manns called Fearless Change. It's about organizational change. We had a follow-on book. I was happy to be in China when the Chinese translation came out. So I'm going to tell you a couple of patterns from this book that might help you look at, I hope, people differently, and especially in overcoming those who don't necessarily agree with you. The first one is called Fearless. Don't run away from it, and don't pull out the sword. Don't be afraid of those people. What you want to do, the pattern suggests, is you want to learn. We are agile, are we not? Isn't it all about learning? You know, that learning mantra is really good until it comes to the point where we might have to listen to somebody who doesn't agree with us. And then learning kind of goes out the window. It's like, well, wait a minute, are we learning or not? Are we only learning from selected sources? Are we only learning from the people who agree with us? Are we only learning from people who have the same bias? Stephen Covey says, listen with intent to understand. That's from his 7 Habits book. Now, don't throw away that nice rational argument, the one that you were using when you were dueling. Don't throw that away. Because what science tells us, especially Daniel Kahneman, is that once you've made up your mind about something, you need to explain it. You need to explain it to yourself. You need to explain it to your colleagues. You need to explain it to your family. So if you have that nice logical argument in your pocket, then you can use it. There's a nice word for that. It's called rationalization. Why are you here? Why are you an Agile supporter? Why did you decide to get married? Why did you decide to work for the company you did? You have a reason for that. You can explain it to anybody who asks. Is it the set of real reasons? Likely not. But you need it nonetheless. So don't throw that away. And the more inclusive it is, the better documented it is, and include not only benefits, but what you don't know, what you don't understand. That's all beneficial. Personal touch means if you're going to talk to anybody about anything, including Agile development, you have to answer this question. It's the question everybody asks about Agile or politics or religion. What's in it for me? Why should I? Why should I care about Agile? Most of us have seen this adopter curve. I'm guessing. Do you know what this means? The innovators, the early adopters, the early majority. Yeah, you've all seen it. And what it shows is that this is the result of a lot of scientific experiments, that when you bring in a new idea to an organization, any new idea, there are going to be some people who love it. They get excited about anything new, actually. Those are the innovators. And so when you talk to them about your new approach to Agile or whatever it happens to be, you're going to find a certain number of people who are going to say, oh yeah, this is new, this is cool. Count me in, the innovators. But look how many. In a normal population, which I have never seen, by the way, innovators, only 2.5%. But then you can also reach the early adopters. The early adopters do want to hear that nice rational argument. They'd like to have some data. Who else is doing this? What other companies have tried it? What have been the results of those projects? I want to know. Early adopters, yes. They don't jump up and down and get excited, but there are not very many of them. 13.5% in a normal population. And now, here are the big numbers. I want to know what other people think. If I have to, we've always done it this way. So whenever I go through the adoption curve with managers, the question I always get is, how can I identify these people? As though there were a hologram stamped on their foreheads. Who are the innovators and who are the early adopters? Who are the early majority and the late majority? And the answer, of course, is these are not people, these are roles that people play. And they are always going to be there. This response is hardwired. Think about why that would be when I say something's hardwired. So let's go back to the savannah. We're sitting under a tree and we're beating out messages on rocks. It sounds like my high school. When suddenly over the hill come some innovators from the population and they say, look, we have found some new fruit. It's delicious. Do you want to try it? Would that be a good idea for all of us to try something brand new? Think about it. New fruit. Tasty. Calories. Yes, we should all try it, shouldn't we? No, probably not. Probably not. In fact, even the early adopters wouldn't try it right away. They would wait until tomorrow. Give that fruit 24 hours. Then the early adopters might try it in a day or two. The early majority would then watch the early adopters, and then they would give them a couple of weeks to see whether anything intestinal, like a super adventure, would be going on there before they jump in and try the new fruit. And of course, some people will never try it. Wouldn't that be a good idea? When you say something is hardwired, what you mean is that meant survival. That's a survival response that got us here today. To have in a group of people some who are adventuresome, that's a wonderful thing. Some who will try anything, that's also wonderful and essential for survival. But to not have everyone feel exactly the same way about anything new, to have this spectrum of responses, to say, well, Let me give that fruit a couple of days. Let me give it a couple of weeks. And some people never try it. That's probably wise. Hold back. It might be that super fruit side effects wouldn't show up for quite a while. Maybe way down the road. Might be good to have some people who never eat it. So we are stuck with this. This is hardwired. It's the response you're always going to find in any organization. It's from the work of E.M. Rogers. And since you can't change it, you should use it. It's the IBM motto. We can't solve that problem. Let's feature it. So those people who have different responses are telling you different things. They know different things. They see the world differently. And instead of trying to draw a bright line in the sand that says innovators, early adopters, good, early majority, late majority, laggards, bad, you should try to get the best out of everyone. This belief that somehow we should all be doing the same, that we are all the same, that we should all believe the same is nonsense. It's a leftover from the industrial age where we said, we're going to all line up in front of this assembly line and we're going to do the same thing every day, day after day, until we die. Our organization should be agile. We should listen to everybody. We should allow the people who are the innovators to go ahead. Try that fruit. You do the experiments. Let us know how it is. The early adopters will wait for the data to come in. The early majority will say, let's see what happens when more and more people across the organization are doing it. The late majority will say, well, I might come around, but it's going to take me a while. And some people will never get on board. And if you are saying we must all be the same, we must all have the same innovator and early adopter hologram stamped in our forehead, then what you're saying is you're going back to the industrial age. Because how do you know that Agile, as it is now, is the best? Some innovator in your organization or in your organization or in your organization tomorrow will find some. We just heard from somebody. He said, I have a new way of doing this. Let's get rid of that product owner. Listen to the innovators and let your innovators build on that and try on it. Let them lead. Let them go out there and try all the new fruit. The others hang back. Build on what they know. Listen to the wisdom in your own organization. They'll tell you not only about the idea itself, but about how they see the world and how they see what's going on within your organization. You'll learn a lot about the organization and how it works by just listening. There it is, another pattern. Listen, listen, listen. And that just doesn't mean stop talking. That's what my husband thinks it is. Listening. I was listening. I wasn't talking. Yeah. This is a problem as you get older, so you'll run into that, I hope, if you're lucky enough, indeed. So, and if you show that you're interested, if you're really listening, then you might even ask some questions. There's research in listening that shows you'll do a better job if you close your eyes. Now, see, my husband tries that, and he's taking a nap. I know, he's not really listening. It's not. And I think the first time I started using this pattern, I realized that I didn't have to whip out my sword and argue. The first time I used it, I ran into someone who was very skeptical. He didn't want to try Agile or any of the new things we have going on in the organization. And I really was afraid of him because I didn't know how to argue with him. I thought that's what it was all about. So he caught me by surprise one day, and I I wasn't prepared, and I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there. And he said, Linda, I don't think this Agile stuff is going to work. You know, my team is too big, and besides, I don't. And all the argument, it just went on and on and on. I was at a loss. And I was astounded. I couldn't believe it. When he finally said, you know, maybe we could try it. I hadn't said a thing. I hadn't argued. I hadn't even gotten ready. I listened him. I listened him into agreeing with me. I listened him. I didn't argue him or whip out a lot of data. Just by being open to listen to what he had to say. You know, sometimes that's all people want. They just want somebody to hear what they have to say about whatever the new idea is. They just want to be listened. And then I discovered this fascinating research. How many of you still read real books? It is Greece after all. Thank you. Thank you for that. I recommend this after you finish with Thinking Fast and Slow. The Righteous Mind is about Jonathan Haidt's research. And in fact, if you just Google on Jonathan Haidt, there's a lot of papers, interviews, TED Talks about his moral foundations. He does research in values and morality. Seems like a strange topic for scientific research. And then Moral Tribes by Joshua Green. Both of these books became very popular after the election. And they both talk about the same thing, which is tribes, moral tribes. And after reading the research, I thought, this is what is happening in the U.S. right now. We have moral tribes, different values, different beliefs. So I wonder, are there moral tribes in Greece? Oh, yes, yes. Are there moral tribes in the Agile community? Oh, my. And have there always been moral tribes in the Agile community? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In project development, anyway, moral tribes who deeply believe in different values. That's what we're talking about. Values, morals, ethics. What is right and what is wrong? That's what we're talking about. Jonathan Haidt's research says there's a real difference in moral values between the left and the right. The left or progressive, their moral values are care and fairness. Those on the right are loyalty, authority, and sanctity. And when I began to read that research, I thought, I see that in the Agile community. Agile values are mostly pretty much left-leaning. And when we make fun of, or when we talk about the business side, we ascribe to them the values on the right. No wonder we have problems communicating. If we have a different set of moral values, then communication is not only difficult, sometimes impossible. And you might think about that in your conversation with somebody who holds a different set of values. You, of course, believe that your values are the right ones, and all your arguments are framed in terms of those values. It's very hard because of one of our biases to hold another set of values. And that's what's required for open communication, is think about what the other person believes. What set of moral values guide their point of view? It's a mental exercise. I'm not sure how successful you will be, but So here's an example. This is from Haidt's work. It's on increased military spending in the U.S. Statement number 1, we should take pride in our military, which unifies us both at home and abroad and defends us from evil aggression. That's a right-leaning statement. The values in it are sanctity, loyalty, hierarchy. Statement number 2, in the military, the poor and disadvantaged can have equal opportunity with a reliable salary and a way out of the challenges of poverty and inequality. That's an argument for the same thing with left-leaning values, care and fairness. Do you see the difference? Now, in experiments, when they show those two arguments, the people who are on the right are more convinced by the first argument, although people on the right usually favor military spending anyway, so they are also influenced to some extent by statement number 2. But people on the left are usually not in favor of increased military spending, so argument number 1 doesn't work for them. But argument number 2 does. So if you're going to convince somebody, and this is the message of all the research, you cannot use your values. You have to express the thing that you believe in, military spending or whatever it is, in terms of values that mean something to the other side. Otherwise, they're not going to hear you and they're not going to care. Now, that seems so obvious, but the disturbing result of all of Jonathan Haidt's research is, even when people are told this, there are different values for left and right, and here's what they are. Even when they're told the differences, and they're given an assignment in an experiment to create an argument that would convince the other side. And if successful, they are able to earn a certain amount of money. The sad result is they can't do it. It's as though we can only argue for our point of view using our own values. We cannot, even for the sake of the argument, adopt the values of the other people, which means that we not only want them to agree with us on the topic, we want them to adopt our values. It's not going to happen. If you're going to have an intelligent discussion with somebody who disagrees with you, probably their values are different. And so if you are stuck with your sword and your rational argument based on your set of values, you're going to be totally unable to influence. They won't hear a word you're saying. No wonder we can't reach any kind of consensus. So here's an example about MFT, which is the moral foundations theory. In an argument with an uncle who insists Boy Scouts should openly gay people from being scout leaders, when he says, for thousands of years, society has been built on one man, one woman. It seems like a dangerous and unnatural social experiment to start having role models who teach kids that it's okay to be gay. And the immediate response from the liberal nephew sitting around the table at Thanksgiving is, what are you talking about? No, it hasn't. The concept of heterosexual one-man, one-woman marriage is actually quite new. Haven't you read the Bible? Ooh, we love to do that. Use the Bible against conservatives. Oh, yeah. Dudes had tons of wives back then. It's like you right-wingers conveniently ignore history just to fight gay rights. Now, that's what he would normally say. He thinks his uncle is stupid because he sees the world differently. You, of course, would never do that. you would come up with this. I think you're definitely right. In fact, I said this on the panel, and I'm not sure it got across, but if you're going to begin a discussion with anybody who disagrees with you, your point of departure should always be where you agree. We both agree that. I think we both feel that. I think we both can see that. I agree with you that, or I heard what you said and I agree that. That should be absolutely the first thing out of your mouth. I think you're definitely right. There's a long-standing, wonderful tradition of one-man, one-woman relations. I totally respect how much you care about that institution. I do too. I think my main reason for allowing gay people to be scout leaders is, and now, he's going to use the values from the other side. I have gay friends who were Boy Scouts growing up and who seriously treasure the lessons they learned during that time. They have the same ideals as you and I do, love our country for the same reasons. They just want to give back to an organization that helped shape who they were and taught them invaluable life skills, using right-leaning values instead of left-leaning. And always begin with, I think you're right about, or I agree with you. So hard to do. So that's the first thing to do, is look for agreement. We know that even at the negotiation table, if you start with some points of agreement, your chances of reaching some kind of consensus go up. I have a good friend who's been a negotiator for over 40 years, and he told me, he said, Linda, you don't have any trouble getting people to come to the negotiation table. Everybody wants to talk because they believe that if they just have a chance to outline their point of view, the other side will hear that and understand where they're coming from. And they both believe that. Both sides believe that if they just have a chance to outline their position, the other side will listen. He said, of course, they're wrong. He said, what's interesting is that in 40 years, I have never had anybody come to the table saying, I'm not sure. I want to sit down and talk to you. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not sure about some of the beliefs that I have, and maybe in listening to you, we can work out areas where we agree. He said, everybody comes in so sure. Everybody comes in knowing in advance that they are in the right. And if they can just argue and convince the other side, they can reach agreement. So I thought, this is all very interesting. I better practice. So I know that when I go to the gym and work out every day, there is one gentleman there, and it's easy because he's wearing his Make America Great t-shirt. And I've had some conversations with him, but it's very difficult. And usually he catches me by surprise when I'm in the middle of doing something and I'm trying to count up to 49 or whatever it is, and he'll go, Linda, look at this joke. He brings in his phone and it's got jokes about the liberals on it. So he always catches me unawares. I always find that I just smile and try to remember, okay, moral foundations theory. Let's see, he believes in sanctity and authority, and I believe in care and fairness. So what is it that I can... And by that time, he's already on another joke. I really wasn't getting anywhere with this moral foundations theory, and I thought I'm a total failure. I don't seem to be learning how to do this. This is just really too difficult. And then a couple of weeks later, he shows up with a friend. So now there are two of them. Both not only with their Make America Great t-shirts, but they've got ball caps, Make America Great. What am I supposed to do? I felt like a total failure. So I said to him, "Oh, I see you brought your friend with you to the gym today." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Hey, Fred, this is Linda." He said, "She's not a Trump supporter." But she's okay. Because she listens. She listens. So I realized what I was doing. I was picking up the sword again. I was trying to use moral foundations theory as a sword. It wasn't working for me, and it's a good thing. Because really the most powerful weapon I have in my arsenal is just my 2 ears. And the fact that he felt he could come up and tell me these rude jokes, and I wouldn't get upset with him, and I would kind of smile, and it was like I really heard him. I really listened to him. When almost everybody who's on my side of the political fence would tell him to, well, take a walk, a long walk on a short pier. And so he brought me up short. He made me realize that I knew that secret all along, and I had forgotten it. That if there's anything that's going to bridge that divide, if there's anything that's going to make things better for us in the U.S. or Greece or anywhere, is to put down that sword, is to really listen. And to remember that guy who was listened into agreeing with me. There's a lot of research that shows that when people feel they are okay, that others will listen to what they have to say. They feel validated and valuable, instead of listening to some rant that's a logical argument that shows them how stupid they are. It's about realizing that we're all flawed humans. And yeah, if I had those set of values, I would probably be wearing a Make America Great t-shirt too. But I have a different set of values. Does that mean we can't have a conversation? God, I hope not. So that's the pattern. Listen, listen, listen. If you are listening, then you care. You care about them. You may not agree with them, but you think they're worth listening to. And we have forgotten that. And we don't listen anymore. So this is the best goal in a conflict. This is a quote from Jonathan Haidt. And I think it's so important. I'm just going to read it to you. If you approach someone whose views are different from your own with the goal of bringing them over to your side, you're going to be disappointed. And there's going to be conflict. But if you hope the other person will change your views, that you will grow as a person, and that this will be an opportunity for you to feel out the shape of your own ignorance, then you're almost guaranteed to get what you're looking for. So that's learning. Now we have to ask our questions along the way, which is there anything? Is there any possible amount of information that this person could tell me that would make me believe that Donald Trump is not an ignorant, misogynist, stupid, and the answer is no. So that's my bias. So that means we should not not talk about that. That should not be a point of discussion. I cannot be rational about Donald Trump. We should talk about other things. We should talk about how you feel and what you're doing and what your beliefs are and how that could help me inform my beliefs. That's what we should talk about. This isn't about the other person. This is about you. Where are you irrational? Where are you unwilling to open your heart and your mind to listen about anything? And draw a little circle around those and say, all right, we shouldn't go there because I cannot be rational about that. I know that about myself. And that's probably where you are today. So I hope maybe, as the last talk of the day, that's what you'll remember going out the door. Put down your sword, open up your heart, and listen. Thank you.
Linda, thank you. I promise to put down my bayonet because sometimes I'm out there with a bayonet, and some of this community will know me as the grumpy Smurf of the ecosystem. Let's take some questions and some chatter. Hands.
I just want to say thank you.
Alrighty, I'll take that one. Yes.
Linda, thank you very much. I will ask a weird question, but it's important for me. It's important to be open and it's important to listen to others, but when it goes to, I don't know, there is no measure. What is right, what is wrong? Like in mathematics is much easier, but still people are arguing. So where is this border where to stop convincing other people in your point of view if you believe this will help world moving forward?
There's nothing wrong with argument. There's nothing wrong with rational argument. It's what is your intent. So if you're intent on winning, if you're intent on making the other people feel like you don't really understand this, and I want to show you how smart I am, and I want you to feel bad when this is done. So whatever argument you raise, I will counter. And it's not about progress for the two of us, which is what the discussion should be. If you look at the intent of Socratic argument, it's we are both on a journey together. Take my hand and let's both examine underneath, around. Let's walk around this issue and let's both ask questions, and then we'll both learn from that. So it's not confrontational, where there is a winner, where I show you how much I know. The discussion should be, because nobody knows everything, the discussion should be, what can we learn? The two of us, what can we learn? And that's true in your relationships, your personal relationships. I try to practice that with my husband. I should have put his picture up here, but as well as work relationships within your community. Yeah, the discussion should be about learning. Isn't that the Agile value that we care about, is learning? Yeah.
Linda, I wonder if I can ask one. How do you deal with people or organizations or entities that deliberately create chaos so that they can control situations, that they can control when they force you to become irrational because they've created chaos in your world?
I think it's wrong to impugn motives to others. I think it's wrong to see that I can step inside another person's brain and decide what the intent was. Who knows? I mean, I have trouble doing that with Donald Trump. I try not to do that with other people, to say, you know, I know what's in your mind. You're intentionally trying to make my life difficult. Maybe that's not the case at all. I think we're better served by being positive and open, and whether or not you're correct about the motives or not, and moving forward based on those other assumptions, than trying to impugn some evil motives to other people. That doesn't mean there isn't evil, but it's like the optimism and positivism are the best way forward, no matter what. I mean, we're all going to die, but we don't live each day saying, how much time do I have? You know? It's better to go forward.
I can tell you that when I'm at a public service counter,
Okay.
an argument I will use, we need to hurry up because my death is fast approaching. And immediately that public service worker will stand up and really start working quickly. Let's take a few more.
Thank you is not enough for that talk, but thank you first. You talked about moral tribes, like moral tribes in the US, in Greece, etc. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that we belong in a universal moral tribe that if we're lucky enough, we may listen such inspiring talks in our 30s, 40s, or 50s by people like you. Why can't we listen to those things when we are kids? Why don't we learn those at school? And what can we do for that? I mean, it's fundamental.
Because that's the real question, isn't it? Is how do we become a member of a moral tribe? And it's from the culture in which we're born. We didn't choose our parents. We didn't choose our other family members. We didn't choose the community. The religion that we usually adopt at an early age, that was handed to us. And so we don't get to choose any of that. And along with that comes membership in a whole host of moral tribes. So that helps you understand other people. Maybe that's a good thing, to say this person didn't choose to be born in poverty, to be born in that particular religion, to have that set of moral values. It was handed to him or her by virtue of where and when and how he or she was born. And so we don't line up and order them out of a catalog. A lot of it is just handed to us. So we shouldn't feel righteous. Oh, because I'm on the left and I have care and fairness, so I'm better than the people on the right who don't. Who knows where that came from? Was it from my parents? Was it from my family? Was it from the town where I grew up, the school where I went? I don't know. Not a good answer, is it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's food for thought.
Do we have any more? Yes, down there. The fact that I haven't killed myself down these stairs these last 2 days has been a miracle.
Linda, thank you very much. I couldn't help but noticing that during your speech you didn't use, I guess intentionally, the word truth. I mean, you're talking about bias, about values, moral values, opinions, arguments, and I correlated that in my mind, something I've heard some weeks ago. It was from Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, that the truth isn't the truth. And I couldn't help but think that, is there in truth? It's just bias, it's just... I just want your opinion of that.
So I remember getting the question. I have several other talks that touch upon this issue other than this one. And a gentleman asked the question. He said, "What if you're right?" As though you could tell that. And that's your question: is there truth, and is there reality? And I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that what you believe about anything, whether it's the color blue, your color blue is likely different from mine. And in fact, if we talk to someone who speaks another language where they have 3 or 4 different shades of blue, their color blue that they see is really going to be different from our color blue. That's true for anything we see, anything we hear, anything we smell, anything we taste. We have created that. And that's all we know. And so naturally we think, oh, well, I see reality. I know reality. And therefore I know the truth. Well, I think probably we all have a little slice of it. And wouldn't it be better if you could tell me what you see and I could tell you what I see? And then together we would see more of reality and more of the truth. That would be my hope.
I'll take that last one.
Thank you. I have a question. You said during your speech that when you listen to the others, maybe they think that you care, and so they're more open to listen to what you have to say. But sometimes there is a thin line, and some people may think that if you are listening, then they have the right to insult your values or use this kind of jokes that you said before. And what do you think, and or is your suggestion, what you think is the proper reaction to that?
I think there has to be a line, of course. You don't allow
your
abuse.
limits.
Yeah, you never allow abuse. And for some of the jokes that he was sharing on his phone, I thought some of those did cross the line. And I, at the time, thought, what should I do about this? But I think what was going on there is he was testing me. See, how much can I do here? How much will she allow me to do? And I think by saying, oh, well, you think this is funny, I don't think this is funny, but you know, you're different from me, you have a different set of values from me, and allowing that he was able to say after a while, okay, he doesn't do that anymore. You know, this was over a year ago, a year and a half ago. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't not testing me anymore. We just talk. He brought in fact, before I was getting ready to leave on this trip, he brought in a bird's nest that he had found. He had rescued a baby bird. And he said, look, this bird, you know, the mother won't take care of it. He said, I'm going to take it home and take care of this baby bird. And I thought, oh. So how wonderful, you know? I wanted to give him a hug. In fact, I did. I gave him a hug.
Thank you.
Linda, thank you very, very much. I'd like to, let's everybody give Linda a final round of applause. And Linda, I'd like you to stay up there and let me take this opportunity to invite all of the speakers that are still here to please join us on stage. All of the speakers that are still here, please join us on stage. All the volunteers, please, that are here in the room and outside, if there are any, please join us on the stage. And I'd also like to invite Yannis Mavraganis on stage for some closing remarks. Thank you very much. Yannis. So how was that, everybody? How are we feeling after a long 2 days?
A lot of listening.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for learning. Thank you very much for giving, because everybody's given something to everyone in these last 2 days, and it's been fantastic. Yannis, I think I need you to come a little further forward. Okay. And can we put something on the screen that says Agile? Μου αλλάζεις λίγο την οθόνη. Μου βάλεις λίγο το... Thank you. And let me also get up there. Maria? All right. Yannis, the microphone is yours.
So, do you feel it was a great event?
We should say that we're expecting more comments in the application. Feedback for next year. We really
Yes, but I couldn't hear them.
I couldn't hear them either.
Do you feel it was a great event?
Someone said something about biases earlier on.
So we are very happy about this. I would like to say a big thank you to our amazing speakers, a big, big thank you to them. Let's applaud them once more. I would like to say a thank you to our sponsors, to the people, the technicians here of the event center. They were really, really helpful. It's a very nice place. Thank you. I would like to thank you, and last but not least, I would like to say a big thank you to the organizers, the girls and the guys with the blue t-shirts. They worked really hard to set up the whole thing, so we know that it was a great event, but we will try harder next year to make it even better. Thank you very much.